Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson over at Media here, and we're joined once again by Mark Gonzales over at First National Bullion. And this is a big one, my friends, because we're seeing a sign of the times here as we see a record $100 billion in Treasury bills issued as U.S. debt crisis turns desperate. Now, this is an interesting one because this is not a one-off thing. This is record-breaking, my friends. And of course, it's being called by Treasury officials the new norm. And we've heard that new normal line a few times over the past few years for a lot of things that unfortunately did become the new norm, which is essentially the mass compliance we're seeing across the board. This is as we're seeing the dollar dominance fall big time. And people will say, well, Trump will say that no president is going to save this, my friends. This is a ticking time bomb that was set off long ago. And we're going to see that shift from the west to the east. I truly believe that, and at least into a digital system. This is as we see massive debts in the United States. And I mentioned this in a previous video that it's not just $37 trillion. If you add up all obligations, we're actually looking at about $151 trillion in a world with a global GDP of $75 trillion. We're also going to go into this with Mark a little bit as the White House is clarifying misinformation about gold tariffs amid bullion market chaos. So I'm excited to jump into this with you, Mark. Before we do, I urge people to check that link in the description, firstnationalbullion.com/schedule-consult/. It has to be that exact link, and there you could buy physical gold, silver, platinum, and palladium. Get out of the CBDC system to come. Protect your money in a way that is substantial. And of course, this is you're able to hold the gold or silver in your hands, put it in a vault, put it in an IRA outside of the traditional IRA system, which a lot of people are kind of trapped in right now. And there you can schedule an appointment for a free consultation with Mark Gonzales and a complimentary investors package. Just let him know in the form when you sign up in the comments that you found him at World Alternative Media, or WAM, WAM. Make sure to find that link in the description. Now let's get into this, Mark. So as it mentions, record $100 billion in Treasury bills issued as U.S. debt crisis turns desperate. I mean, this is massive. We're looking at, something that's only usually reserved for emergency situations, but happening regularly. Now we see a record amount, and they're calling it the new norm as we see the dollar's global credibility fade. We're seeing liquidity risks grow. We're seeing so much happen. I want you to break this down, what this means for the average person, what this means for the system going forward. Can you go into that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. First of all, if you don't understand that the U.S. survives solely on the ability of other countries giving us money, then you need to know that, first of all. But the thing is if we've gone in the last decade from the U.S. dollar maintaining about a 70% plus reserve status across the world to now we're just above 50. So everybody's de-dollarizing, and China, Japan, and other countries barely even show up to our auctions. So you got the direct buyers, which is us, and you got the indirect buyers, which is other countries. The indirect buyers just aren't simply showing up there. So what happens when you got to roll over this debt? Right? If you own a loan, then what can you do? Okay, you can either pay off the loan or you can roll it over. Well, we can't pay it off. It was as simple as that. We would have already been doing it. But keep in mind that the debt is currency itself. They're one and the same. So if you pay off the debt, you get rid of the currency, you get rid of the money base. So we don't want to do that. What we're tending to do is revalue. So when you see a $100 billion short stopgap loan is essentially what it is for 4-week term treasury. So this isn't even long dates. This is the short end. You don't get much shorter than 4 weeks. What this does is it screams Band-Aid relief payday loan. Mm-hmm. I mean, it really does. Our government, our U.S. Treasury is resorting to a payday loan scenario. So what happens? Do we just issue these every single month until we revaluation? So top-down scenario that Josh and I have been talking about for a long time, connect the dots of where we're going with this. Okay, so now we're doing short-term payday loans essentially to our government to keep the lights on. Yeah. That's what that means, plain and simple. Call it.
And Mark, they mentioned that this is just for emergency situations, but it's become the new norm. Describe what that emergency situation is now, or the plethora of it, because it seems like we're stacking up 20, 50 different emergency situations simultaneously here, and they just happen to be rolling out the red carpet simultaneously for that digital system. What do you think?
Well, emergency situation would be like TARP in 2008. which now we all know that the de facto resolve for the banking crisis or over ledgers crisis isn't going to be the bailouts, it's going to be the bail-in. So they're going to convert your accounts to cash. But we're coming across these emergency situations because essentially since 2008, we've had suppressed growth. We've essentially been in a depression. They moved the goalpost in the Biden administration on what exactly is a recession. And then we would have been technically under the old terms in a recession this last quarter print of GDP if it wasn't for the tariffs of deducting the imports against the exports. There just simply weren't enough imports to come in. So emergency situation after emergency situation is because we've created the situation for ourselves being the reserve benchmark, living comfortably, sitting on our ass, exporting our inflation and our manufacturing that is coming home to roost. So again, back to the statement, you have debt. There's only a couple things you can do. You can either refinance the house, roll it over, or pay the damn thing off. Now, not everybody can pay the damn thing off. So what we're doing is we're borrowing time to get to a certain distance in the future, which I don't believe is very, very far from now, where this new stable coin, this new digital currency, which is backed 1-to-1, is going to be revalued something to what now backed to 1-to-20. So now you got a nickel for every buck that you had in a digital structure, and you eliminate the debt. So debt creates the currency. You offset the debt to refactor what it makes, whether it's a new issue or not. And the governments, the banks, the central banks, they all get a bailout. You get screwed. It's not a pretty picture. And if this is now the de facto way of life, where it used to be a one-off emergency situation, be afraid. Be very, very afraid.
Well, yeah, and absolutely. And we do have solutions in the description again. But, this is so important to mention as they roll out, like I mentioned, that red carpet for that digital currency system. The people that are watching out there, Mark, how does it affect their bank account, the money that they have in the bank? Because we're looking at the mass devaluation. We're looking at a massive amount of debt. We have Basel III coming in with 63 central banks where they can bail in your account and just take your money out of your bank account. What does this record amount of Treasury bill, what we're seeing right now, this massive debt crisis, what does that have as an echo effect on the average person's bank account?
Your bank account, if it's just sitting there in cash, one, it's exposed to bail-ins and government confiscation. But two, the biggest thing is you got some of the biggest lenders to the U.S. Treasury and the U.S. government over the last 2.5, 3 decades that are now neutral to net sellers. Okay, so when you pull it out from wherever you want to call it, when you pull these things out and put them on the table, it screams distrust around the world of your currency base, even though it was already distrusted because we weaponized it so many times. So I expect that this is just going to signal even more of a sell-off from other countries, and it's going to create more dollars coming back to our shores, which is not something we necessarily want, because how inflation works is you got something called the velocity of currency, and this is why the IMF SDR was created in 69 to prevent this from 71. I've been saying this for a while. We haven't seen it to true effect take the distance of what it's going to take to hyperinflate. Maybe we won't, maybe we revalue, but the dollar essentially becomes like the hot potato effect. So velocity is how many times does a unit exchange hands within a day? You've heard me talk about this before. So you're my waiter, I tip you $5. You decide to go get an Uber, you tip that guy $5. That Uber decides to put $5 in his gas, you got a factor of 3. Once you get higher up that scale, it becomes kind of like the hot potato, and your grocery bill starts going up. So every single week when you're going to buy groceries, you're starting to see, I'm paying X amount of percentage more and more. $100 is now 110, 120, 130. So you decide to start changing your spending habits, and you go on a Tuesday, not a Saturday. When the world decides to change its spending habits, you essentially are coming to hyperinflation. But the long and short of it, this screams government desperation, and there is no country that has had a dominant yield that has pulled shit like this and survived.
Absolutely. If you look at the history books, this does not end well for anyone unless they're prepared. So let's get into that, Mark. I wanted to jump into what it takes to be prepared for what comes next, but I also want you to gloss over what this recent clarification from the White House is about gold tariffs amid this bullion market chaos. There's a lot of claims being thrown out there. Can you break that down for us?
Yeah, I was pretty concerned when I came across this. So essentially what Trump has done is he has issued a 39% tariff of any minted stamped gold coming out of Switzerland. Switzerland, if you don't know, is probably the biggest refining hub and manufacturing hub for actual physical precious metal in the world. There's other places that come a close second, but what Switzerland does is it not only mints their own gold, but they will white label for other countries and other governments as well. So if it is stamped pure 3.9 silver, 3.9 gold coming out of Switzerland, whether it's done for a private mint, white label, or a backup default for a government, it is in fact a minted coin. So that coin then being manufactured, leaving Switzerland to come to the United States, is going to incur a 39% tax. The question is that we need clarification on: does this get retroactive back to the 31st of July? The biggest thing about this is the concern now is the short squeeze that could be coming on gold. Me personally, I think next week, don't quote me on this, it's not investment advice, but I think next week you might even see a pullback in metals to try to cap this high and unwind some of those short positions at a lower point. Because if you have a short position and there is no foreseeable gold to obtain to unwind that position, you must exit. So ultimately, I think this is gold positive. It's going to pull a lot of pressure off the gold. And now keep in mind, this goes right in line with Basel III, making what a tier one asset? Gold. But is it all gold that a brokerage or a bank possesses? No, it's only the physical gold. So we're talking about physical gold here. All these things are being done to tariffs, one, start the economic collapse, to destroy credit, have a margin event, because the heavy lifting of a bankruptcy or default is done through the extinguishing of debt. Going into tariffs to tighten the gold market, accelerate what was warned to banks and governments about 5 years ago, to now get on the right side of the trade, get out of the paper, get into the gold. Connect the dots, people. I mean, gold is going to have a significant fabric, either not backed, and I don't think it's going to be backed, or gold-based, gold-backed, but I think the price of gold has a significant factor in what's coming in this new revaluation. Silver is going to follow. Next week, May, if I'm right on this pullback, and I could be wrong, this thing could just get squeezed to high heaven. You could see gold go to $3,500, not just 34. It could go to 36. It could also pull back to 33. So keep your pocketbooks open and be ready to buy.
Yeah, and it's very frustrating, Mark, because I don't read a lot of comments on the videos that I put out there. I read some here and there, and there's some great comments out there, but there's a lot of trolling, so I just kind of avoid it. But when we make videos, we always get the average people that say, "Hey, how dare you guys promote gold and silver and all these things that I've been hearing about for all these years?" And then I talk about this as a real solution. It's not investment advice; it's wealth insurance. But yeah, all those years ago, if you got into gold and silver, you would have avoided a huge amount of inflation that we've seen since, and of course, it would have carried its value over. So I don't see how that's a negative thing. Instead, people are paying, in some cases, $75 for not even a great quality steak at your local grocery store, and people are saying that there's nothing to see here, don't worry about it, and they look the other way. Just like the Democrats pretended there was no inflation when there was obviously massive inflation, Republicans are doing the same thing now as we see inflation hit a lot of important products, the most important of which are the most basic ones, the cheapest foods out there that are usually very bad for you, but nonetheless are a great metric for how the economy is going, what the price of Campbell's soup is, for example. And, people are just ignoring it. The reality is that we are witnessing the end of the dollar as it stands today. We are witnessing the introduction of a almost inescapable digital system. And of course, we are seeing the panic on the faces of those who pretend to try and prop up this system as long as possible. At the end of the day, they all know that all fiat currencies eventually revert to zero. And they all know that this will end badly. It's not America forever. Unfortunately, the West has committed suicide over the last 100 years, slowly but surely. So again, when we provide solutions, Mark, we always get the same comments. Oh, here you are shilling gold and silver again. Explain to people why gold and silver are really a great way to escape this inevitable, and I say inevitable again, 100% inevitable future that we're facing, that is digital, that is technocratic, that is unfortunately very controlling, utilizing the monetary system. How important is it, Mark, to have that gold and silver in the face of that? And check out that link in the description.
It should be the backbone of everybody's financial position, just like it's the backbone of all accounting and the ideal of money, because gold and silver are the actual money of the world. Even going back in the Roman Empire in Athens, Greece, what they would do is they would devalue a coin, say a 10 mint mark that had pure gold or silver on it. They would devalue it to 40, 50% of the gold content, yet still have the mint mark of 10. empire gets in trouble, goes broke. You can't dig the stuff out of the ground. You can't print it with the technology that we have today. So what do? You go from a 10 coin to something a little bit larger, call it a 50, but it only has 50% of what the previous 40% has. So now you have the argument of nominal versus notional, the mint mark versus actual, the real quantity. The price of gold in that case has been risen. So this is a playbook that's been used for thousands and thousands of years. This isn't just Mark Gonzales or Josh or anybody else that speaks our language saying, hey, buy gold and silver. No, this is how it works. That is why the unit for global trade of the BRICS nations is back 40% with gold. That is why they make gold money again per Basel III, but only the physical gold. That is why if you want to participate in the unit with China, even if you're not a part of the BRICS, you can do so by having gold that your country owns within its own borders. Why do you have this mass move of gold everywhere? Why are you having sanctions of gold, removing the ability to move the gold to other countries, causing a squeeze, forcing this thing along, all along signs that we're getting digital currency? Now, a lot of people didn't think that we were going to have digital currency when we talked about that. And I started hearing it first about it about 2010, 2011, when I was telling people that I work with. But guess what? Here we are. And did you know there's no Epstein file? Right. So let's just believe whatever the hell we want to say. I don't know what to say to anybody that wants to say that. And if you want to reach out to me personally and have a conversation, that's fine. We'll discuss it. I have no problem. I got a little spare time. I'll do that for you. If anything, it might be your great awakening, but don't come at us and say that we're fear mongering or that we're only shilling gold and silver. And like, what is your 4% CD and bank savings account going to do when you get to look up John O. Williams of Shadow Stats, which removes imputations from all hedonic adjusted numbers? And you're going to see that the true inflation rate is about 10%. And if you go to the grocery store, guess what? 10% is a little bit more accurate than 3%. So are you losing? Are you gaining? And then on top of that, you're losing value on your currency as well. Yet I've said it before a million times, a 64 quarter with silver in it still buys a gallon of gas. And guess what? Now a bottle of water.
Yeah, absolutely. I urge people to take those solutions seriously. And Mark has been insightful for a very long time, has been doing this for a very long time, understands what's going on, is awake to all these things. And this is all the more reason that you guys should go and check that out in the description. firstnationalbullion.com/schedule-consult/ I'll say it again. firstnationalbullion.com/schedule-consult/ It might be a long link, but it has to be said exactly that way, put in exactly that way. But the link is in the description, easy for you to go and click. And there you could avoid this digital system to come. You can ensure your wealth in the face of what is to come. And you could buy physical gold, silver, platinum, palladium. Of course, you could hold that gold in your hands, put it in a vault, put it in an IRA outside of that traditional IRA system that I know so many of you guys might have and are kind of concerned about stepping out of it. I urge people to at least talk with Mark about this, have a consultation with him. You'll get a free consultation when you sign up and a complimentary investors package. So just go and check out that link. Let him know in the comments that you found him at World Alternative Media, or WAM, WAM, in the comments of the form that is when you go to sign up. So this is, again, all about giving you guys real solutions in the face of what's obviously to come. And unfortunately, people will say, well, you've been saying the dollar is going to crash for a long time. It has been. It doesn't happen overnight. What do you think we're seeing with this shift from the west to the east, this shift into the digital currency, these emergency situations across the board, the devaluation that we've seen at skyrocketing levels over the past, not just 10 years, obviously the last 100 years, but especially over the last 10 years. That is a crash. It doesn't happen overnight. And of course, we get normalized to it. But imagine if we went from the price of living in, say, 2010 to the price of living now overnight. Everyone would notice it a lot more. Unfortunately, people get normalized over 15 years and think nothing's happening. It is happening. We need to take precautions. We need to do something about it. And as always, it's good to go into this with you, Mark, and it's always very insightful. Check those links in the description, my friends, and take responsibility over your life, my friends. This is your opportunity. Until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson and Mark Gonzales signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth. Be the change.